Дякую. Вітання від Українського кризового медіа.
Good afternoon from Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. I'm happy to express this from our partners, decentralization in Ukraine. We are discussing today the territorial organization of power in Ukraine and we'll try to answer the questions which are topical. The last week, Cabinet of Ministers had published a draft design of the new district division, territorial division with the split by communities in Ukraine. Today we have journalists from 16 regions of Ukraine. You can watch us on Decentralization Project Facebook channel and Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. We have allocated more than 2 hours of time for today. Some journalists had submitted their questions simultaneously with the registration for today's conference, but you are ready also to ask question in course of the press conference. You may press the button and ask the question. Today with us we have Mr. Viacheslav Nehoda, Deputy Minister for the Communities and Territories Development in Ukraine, and also Mr. Vitaliy Bezgin, Deputy Member of Parliament of Ukraine, head of the Subcommittee on Administrative and Territorial Development. So let us first answer the question why we are not happy with 190 districts, administrative districts, and why we want to reform this district system in Ukraine. Thank you so much. Today's press conference is quite important. One of the nearest cabinet meetings, we will discuss the sub-regional territorial and administrative division in Ukraine, which are called districts in Ukraine. And now answer to your question why we want to change the borders or the system the system of districts, which today comprises 190 districts. Then if we want to change it, then how to change it? What districts we want to establish, to create, and what is the overall purpose of this? And today we will describe our position, our vision as to these aspects. As for the districts themselves, quite recently we had our discussion here about territorial communities, and the reform, which we conventionally call decentralization, is actually about self-governance and territorial allocation of power in general. And thinking about this reform, we kept in mind the such thing as efficient communities, trying to delegate some services to communities, and those communities will deliver the same government services that are delivered today in the amalgamated communities via centers for administrative services deliveries, so-called SNAP. that is, we are speaking about the concentration of the power, concentration of powers at some regional level. At the same time, we should remember that that many financial resources today will be transferred to and delegated to the local communities. In some cases, those districts and borders of districts are tailored more for efficient functioning of administrative, central administrative powers, and thinking about efficient local governance, we see that and looking at the map of this administrative authorities in the regions, we see that there is a variety of different levels of powers and authorities in the same territories. We have 490 districts. That is what we have today, the number of districts we have today. But when we look at the number of residents, we have up to 6,000 of residents in some districts. 6,000 of residents is not enough for a district, for administrative district. Those districts where the population is lower than 50,000 does not comply with today's requirements as to the executive authorities. So we have to optimize the borders of the districts up to the level where executive authority will function efficiently. Because you cannot find a sufficient number of adult workable age population in a small community to fill in all the vacancies for the governing bodies if you have only 6,000 residents. Since those districts are inefficient, so what was your approach as to the formation of the new districts? What were the criteria that were applied? Thank you so much for this opportunity, for this venue, which allows us to have a meaningful discussion. Up to now, independent Ukraine had to live in line with the old Soviet administrative division. The absolute majority of district centers today is the artificial center of local communities, where you can go just for a fair, Sunday fair, but not more. So the districts or district centers, this is about state authorities. This is about the place where public administration is concentrated. The draft list of new districts is published on the website, as well as the methodology. The lowest limit for the district is 150,000 of population. Of course, we have bigger districts like near Kharkiv. There might be also districts with much lesser number of population in highland area, in mountain regions. Now, more about how it was developed. We tried to balance the efficiency requirements offered by the state and the interests of local population. We collected recommendations from experts, from local administrations and the regional state administrations, oblast state administrations submitted their recommendations, and that recommendations had advisory power to us. By the way, the drafting was made public. We published the first draft and intermediary results of our drafting, which made the process rather transparent. Quite often on Facebook you can read that people were not asked. You have to distinguish when you get a message from just ordinary people or the Facebook bots of some local principle. And I would only say that we allocated more than 6 months for broad consultations. Actually, this is now the right of the state to publish its draft. Actually, now we are discussing the governmental structure, the public administration structure of Ukraine. Of course, in some territories, people say, we want this, we want that, we want to belong to that district, we want to belong the neighboring district. We were open to all discussions. We were available in the social media, and if you compare this reform with other reforms, you may clearly see that it was transparent and open for broad discussion. Of course, we are also interested to be transparent and open to get as much support for our draft, as much support as possible. The territorial reform, it's not a reform which can be made in one office. Mr. Kaliushka, our expert, tripped to almost all the districts and formatted their version of the territorial division map, and so we were maximally opened and invited everybody to join. But if you want to join, try to understand the joint position, so to say. Let us ask the following question ourselves. We have such a territorial units of, for example, text administration. Some time ago, we also had established territorial branches of the Ministry of Education, Social Protection, etc. And the districts are established for the state to be able to carry out these administrative functions for local population. It's not about self-governance. It's purely about public administration. When we speak about the district council, today, they are incapable and they are subordinated to the so we have to get rid of stereotypes today and understand that the districts are established for central governmental authorities to be able to deliver necessary public services to local population. Okay, now when we have clarified that the districts are formatted for the government authorities, for the population of not less than 150,000 residents each. Now let's come closer to your proposal, to your suggested territorial plan, territorial outlay, territorial layout. What we will have tomorrow. Please do not hurry up. There is translation. On Friday, the ministry had published the list of districts for mainland Ukraine. During the weekend, we had published the list of districts for occupied Crimea and occupied Donbass. And of course, it's understandable that today we are not discussing neither Crimea nor occupied Donbass territories. It will be corrected after the occupation. Today the main question is about district councils. The issue with district councils is about amendments to constitution. For efforts to amend constitution in this aspect, they failed. Whether there will be fifth attempt, I can assure you, yes, there will be the next attempt to register a new draft law and submit it to the Constitutional Court. Whether we will be able to find 126 votes in the parliament by the moment when we will have local election this autumn, of course not. But but nevertheless, this discussion has to be started. I believe that we have to discuss whether we need district councils, whether or whether where we need them, etc. So we will reorganize the districts and we will change or amend the powers. And instead of 490, we will have 118 districts. Then the next question, whether they will be connected to the hospital districts. No, we found it out that it is not efficient as of now. So when it comes to healthcare and education, we have to coordinate all those processes in the Ministry of Territories and Regional Development. Now about territorial branches of the central executive bodies. The branches remain non-functional. That's why when we say that in Zhytomyr region, we have Malin town, and they want to have Malin district, but this is the seventh town in this region, and not even fifth. That's they are not very capable, actually. Please show your presentation.
I don't know whether we should do this because we do not have a lot of time. We would like to speak with you more, and this is one of the basic issues. What functions will be implemented at different levels and by what bodies? Once again, I would like to stress that we have, if we are not speaking about judiciary, we have two systems of the bodies. This is the system of bodies of local governance, oblast level, regional level, Kiev, Sevastopol, plus sub-regional level, regions, districts, and hromadas, communities. And we should have proper bodies of power at each level. At the level of communities, if the main dominance is made by local governance, but in big cities, we will have also territorial bodies of executive power. For example, police, other bodies that have a widespread system of structural units at the level of the region, at the level of gramadas. They will be functioning there, but the main powers will be at the level of local governance, about 80% or more. I won't go into detail because we have a big list of them. About district level, this is an issue for discussion, but we base our opinion on Constitution. It is stated that there's district councils and how they are formed. They approve the regional budget and the plans of social economic development of the district. So we have it in Constitution, dear colleagues, and we cannot avoid this norm. And if there are no common interests, maybe we won't have them, but if we have them, and Vitaliy said for some period before introduction of changes to Constitution, for some period, we believe the ministry, our working group that now is working, we believe that at the district level we will have some period of management of property based on those regions that we have now, and it should not disappear at once. It should be done gradually. What assets, what property will be provided to territorial communities, and what property will go to sub-regional level and will stay there. This is about responsibilities and about delegated powers. We carry out consultations with all the executive bodies, with the Ministry of Education and Healthcare, the Ministry of Social Protection, and other bodies about education. The Ministry of Education, they have a concept of organization of education in Ukraine. And at the sub-regional level, they believe there may be such a responsibility of as secondary education, and this is not the responsibility of the community, but the responsibility of high level of competence. The same about healthcare, concerning support of secondary level of healthcare. And this problem will persist. The problem of hospitals, district hospitals, and there are many other institutions within the healthcare responsibility. And community should not take all powers in this. The mayor, they may say, we don't have to take care of this hospital. We will deal only with the small healthcare point. Why should I support this big hospital? And I don't believe that cooperation between communities will help in this. Proper management won't be provided in such a way. Maybe if we change legislation, we will be able to do it in some time. And we should deal it at a proper level. And about social protection centers and measures that are implemented concerning protection of children and elderly people within the responsibilities of Ministry of Social Policy, and also planning of territory, cadasters. Communities won't do this. This is the responsibility of the Ministry of Infrastructure. So there are functions that should be implemented, and some bodies of power should be created to implement these functions. And the question is about the money. And also we should think this issue through in order to provide for these district councils. And how territorial communities will be represented in these councils. And also we should work on the budget, the tax code, whether it will be tax money or separate subsidy, or oblast council that also implement the function of administration. So also we have oblast powers concerning regional and oblast administrations, but this is a separate point of discussion. So we see the overall picture, what will happen with the districts in the future, and we would like to give the floor to the journalists, so please get ready. And I would like to say that Irina Klitschkova, the main editor, chief editor of Sevastopol newspaper, she asks about Sevastopol, whether this is part of Bakhchisaraysk region or whether it will be a separate administrative unit. Thank you. And as a person from Crimea, I would like to say that now we have the text of constitution, and as of today, this is a city with a special status. Sevastopol remains a separate unit, and the government resolution that will be registered within the Supreme Council, so we will change the status. About the regions, about districts, discussion continues, and in my opinion, Sevastopol should become a part of Crimea and should enter Bakhchisaray region. And I believe that we don't have any grounds now to remain Sevastopol in its special status, because Kiev is capital of Ukraine and Sevastopol. The city has special status that may be removed. It will become just a city, and it will enter some region, some district. Олена Олійник, Трудова Слава, newspaper, Херсон область. Olena, wait a moment. Elena, good afternoon. Dear participants of the conference, I'm really glad to be here with you, Novotroitsky region, long-suffering region from Kherson Oblast. I would like to ask our speakers. Novotroitsky will be Gnechensky region, we understand this, but we have hope of revision of the model, not to have one Novotroitsky community in the composition of Novognichesky region. Because when they speak about our regions, it looks like you didn't learn the law on decentralization, because there should be accessibility of services, or you ignore it intentionally and violate it. And this community is 2,300 hectares of square kilometers. And quality of services suffer. And we had 4 separate communities. They were capable, and you agreed with this plan. And Igor and Viacheslav agreed with this until the last day. My question, why you got convinced so quickly and changed your decision, and what arguments you need in order to create in the territory of Novotroitsky 4 communities, not 1? Because here people, you know maybe about this, they collected signatures, they are ready to strike on the road because of this. And I didn't have the opportunity to speak with you directly before. Please ask a question. Yes, we understood this question. What arguments are needed to you in order to change your decision? Thank you for your question. Vitaliy is here with us today, and he is to the right of me, and Igor is to the left of me, Igor Kaliushka. I mentioned him before. He really contributed to this reform. About whether we changed, and why do you believe that I changed my opinion, and why do you think that my opinion differs from yours? Maybe you do not have such information, but we believe that this decision is adopted at the higher level, and in the system of executive power, I implement the decision that I should implement. This is not a discussion club. Executive power is not a discussion club. At your councils, you may discuss, maybe you do not have anything else to do. In the parliament also, they adopt important decisions after discussions. But we had large-scale consultations. I understand your concern. And many people really care about their community and the region. And thank you for your support of the district matters. But I would like to say once again, this is not about size. This is not about the number of population. If we are speaking about efficiency of community, and maybe you will join the organizational work of this community, and it is adopted in the prospective plan by the Cabinet of Ministers. It was developed by State Oblast Administration, and they had consultations with you. They heard your opinion, and they proposed such a solution, such a decision. And you will participate in elections, and you will do everything possible to make this community the most efficient in Ukraine. Because you may have 2, 4, or 5, but if local deputies are not efficient, the head of the council is not efficient, so the head of the city is not efficient, so you won't be able to succeed. So everything depends on people. Everything depends on the people who deal with this case. And I believe in your success. At the same time, we should not make a tragedy out of this. In Donetsk, Limanska city territorial community was established, one of the best in Ukraine. They are really efficient. About 30 village and town councils joined, more than 40 settlements, and they are efficient. And it depends on whether you are able to provide services through service provision centers. In order to represent all settlements in the councils in different forms, and we should work on this. Maybe in 5 years, this model will be the most efficient one, and you will be proud of this, because the future belongs to big, powerful communities. And investors like to work with such communities and business, and on the whole world, they rate communities according to their size. That's why, and they do not pay attention to smaller communities. That's why I wish you all success. Vitaliy is given the floor next, and Vladimir Fisko, Berezovsky region, why this district is created in the Zakarpattia region, and why Tyachev and Rakhiv regions got united, why Tyachev is established as center, because Rakhiv is bigger settlement. Thank you, and greetings to Vladimir. He is a good expert concerning decentralization in his region. Maybe this is about Bergev region. Look, first, now it looks like a media attack. This is about the parliament and the ministry, that Bergev region, that something is wrong there, that some interests are present there. If we look at the map of Ukraine, Bergevsky region is present there. So now there is enlargement of the region. Bergev region in this proposal gets united with the Vinogradivsky region. And if you have some concerns concerning the structure, you may look at this data. And first of all, we should not believe that there is some separatism, because all citizens of Ukraine, the residents of Ukraine, they are citizens of Ukraine, and we should support them. And we should create powerful, capable communities, and our work has shown that there may be good cooperation between people of different ethnicity. And we are speaking about the fact that the more risks there are, the more state supervision we should have in these regions. About fifth region, Zakarpattia, Tyachev and region, we have ongoing consultations concerning what center should be, what configuration they should have. The matter is, Tyachev is smaller, and there are a lot of powerful communities there, and Rakhiv is more remote. This is a mountainous area. Plus Tyachev, they are near Khust. That's why there are ongoing consultations, and the ministry and the parliament and the state oblast administration, we believe that in the nearest future, during the hours, some decision will be taken concerning this. Nehoda, Kiev Oblast, do you hear us? Good afternoon. I would like to ask you about practical implementation of the accessibility of education in connection with the formed region, FASTIV region. Often we face such a situation that adjacent villages, because of lack of education, schools are shut down because of lack of financing or lack of proper staff, or because of lack of accessibility. If you look at Google Map, it looks like the school is closed, but if you are trying to find the way, it will be difficult to go there. You may go there by railway, for example. Please be brief. That's why I ask you to tell us in what way local governance and administrations will be able to provide accessibility and to provide quality education for each settlement. Thank you for your question. Education, but we now speak more about healthcare, but education is one of the main areas, the main functions of the state and of local governance, starting from kindergartens and then schools, and then we go up and up. And about education services, educational services at the level of community, this is not a competence and the sphere of powers of the regional administrations. As I've said before, today we draft the regions based on current practice. When these amalgamated communities are not created, educational services are provided from the regional level, and the state administration provides this services. District councils, they redistribute subsidies, educational subsidies, and deal with optimization of those networks if there is such a need. They should also organize transportation of children in case they need to base schools or hub schools if there is no school at settlement. We understand that not all settlements have schools, and we have more than 29,000 settlements, and we cannot provide school to each. We cannot have hub schools in all of them. We need to improve our demographic situation, but no one works on this, and including our ministry. That's why these functions you've mentioned concerning education, they will be provided at the level of these communities that were created, including in Kiev Oblast. This will be their main task. Also about transportation of children, and also about hub schools and support to these schools. I believe that this will be done at the regional level. As I've said, at the district level, there can be some educational functions concerning specialized secondary education. It will be defined, and it will be defined in our legislation, but this is not about all settlements. This is about some children with special needs, or there may be some other areas. We should take care of quality of education, and for the quality of we should take care of quality of services, and this is within the responsibilities of communities. But the state executive power, if we see that in some communities some resources are lacking for repayment or for construction of schools, if they lack resources for kindergartens or other things, the task of the state through different funds, through State Fund of Regional Development or Social Development Fund or other state and budget funds and resources to support construction of such schools or their repair. So this is the function of the state, to provide quality of services. If a community is not able to provide quality services, then there should be intervention by the state. And in schools, they should have self-governance, and the main role should be played by parents, and the role of the state is to provide right curriculum and to provide good teachers and to provide timely and good salary.
Question from Ukraine 24 TV channel. Darina Filonenko from Ukraine 24. I would like to ask a question to the Deputy Minister. So my question to you, at what stage the decentralization issue is today, and whether you will cope and resolve it by local elections? That's interesting question. Perhaps some people under term of decentralization keep in mind a new territorial division, local self-governance system, the decentralization, that is delegation of functions itself. So all the bulk of issues, everything began from the understanding that Ukraine wishes to decentralize powers, that is to delegate some functions to the local level. In order to do this, we had to establish the system of local communities, that is the subject which would take that powers, which would delegate to the local level. At the same time, looking at those countries which were implementing such reforms, I cannot mention anyone which was doing simultaneously decentralization and territorial division reform. 5 years, during 5 years, we allowed the voluntary amalgamation of communities. At the same time, we need to reform the system of central executive bodies and their branches which exist at the local level. At the same time, we know that the local communities have no executive bodies, which they should have according to the European Charter of Self-Governance. That is, we have to create the local self-governance level, local communities level of authorities, and then delegate functions from central government to the local one. This is about the complexity, the comprehensiveness of this reform. In order to launch this system of the from January 1st, 2021, we have to formate local self-governance bodies in the communities. And according to Constitution, vote for the members of local district councils. We have to do this not later than in July. In order to organize those elections, the government has to submit to the parliament not later than the next week the list of districts and the list of communities which comprise each district. And then we will start the process of establishing new districts and repealing the old ones. This should be registered also rather soon. So the cabinet resolution should be about new districts should be done this by the end of this month. So if the parliament would manage to pass all those legislative initiatives by vacations, then we will have elections according to the new territorial division. We have 3 more plenary weeks by the end of this session. We have to vote the parliamentary resolution about districts by the end of this period. If we manage to do this, then we will have a new country. How many attempts do we have to vote for it? Only one. Why do we need the decentralization reform? Perhaps you were late because we started from the very beginning. The main idea is to make services closer to those people who require them. In Soviet times, the districts were main district centers were main centers of services delivery. We decided the local communities could be self-sufficient in terms of service delivery, and that's why we decided to enlarge the local communities and districts. That's why the story about an old woman who has to travel for 100 kilometers to get a service, it's a theory. Pidnebesna community from Odessa region. Please ask your question. Thank you for the press conference. I would like to know 2 things about Podilsky district in Odessa Oblast, and moreover about the Podilska amalgamated community, which is established inside Kuyalnitska, OTG. Could you describe how it happened? Podilsky district itself comprised Kuyalnitska OTG, and now we assume that there might be problems with these 2 new districts, Podilsky and Kuyalnitsky. And the next question, how the assets of district councils will be shared or splitted between the communities, or how this will happen, and also the elections of wardens, how they will happen. Let's start with the first question about Kuyalnitsky and Podilsky communities. Podilsky district in new borders raised no questions. Let us go back to the history. Kuyalnitska district was established voluntary, and actually a ring was created around Podilska town. We will not try to understand why it happened so. When we started to think about the situation, we understood that more capable center will swallow the the amalgamated community, but in this case it won't be a good decision because the surrounding community is also rather capable. Then we decided to give some territory to Podilsk town because this approach was less traumatic. As for Kuyalnitsky chairman, he is not that happy. Or Podilsky mayor is not happy, but I believe that this is a good trade-off. It's a good trade-off and the least painful option. Then you asked your second question about the assets. About the assets and about election of wardens. About wardens, it's the best question, I think. The issue of wardens is a subject to further regulation. We have several theories. One of the approaches is that together with local elections, we will have elections of wardens, but due to the pandemic, local budgets are underfunded. They have not received enough revenues for all the elections. What options we can have with wardens. For the wardens elections, we have to determine first and to establish first the warden the wardens counties, and in some communities we have such counties. In other communities it is inappropriate, and here we have to develop a proper approach. The third option might be to continue that current chairman of local self-governance council should extend their term by the moment when it will be possible to have new elections. And the fourth option might be to delegate this decision how many wardens local communities want, and then decide how they would elect them. Whether they should be elected or should be appointed at the session of the local councils. But what is important for the state, this should not be politicians. They should be professionals capable to deliver some professional services. Upon consultations and with experts and local opinion, we would decide. We also will take into account the efficiency of this institution in current models which already exist. As journalists, you might help us here to ask the same question to people. As for the assets of local district councils, this is not the property of local communities. This is property of local district councils. For some period of time, these assets will be used by newly elected district councils, and then these assets will be splitted. Those assets which are connected with delivery of services, it will be transferred to local communities. The assets that deliver services for the entire district, it will remain as a property of the district authorities. We have to apply common sense as to the asset division, and if the assets are used by only one community, they should be given to this community, transferred to the community. If several communities use the assets of district authorities today, then they should share it. The district level would be managed by district council by the moment when we amend the constitution. The next word will go to Mr. Kaliushka. Why amalgamated communities were elections were held in 2017 had not become the subjects of budgetary relations? That's very interesting question. When the budget was passing through the approval process, the budget for this year, we did not have enough votes for this solution. Now, in the midst of the year, it is not possible to change this reality. Elections last year were held a bit late. Now this year we have the issues with the budget cutting, and that is, we will not resolve this issue this year. We have such an important thing with the local communities as budget subventions. Now we have consultations with the Ministry of Finance what to do with these budget subventions, how we can transfer 1.5 billion hryvnia to these amalgamated communities which are not included into direct financial elections. Financial relations, and how to support the amalgamated communities which are being established this year. I will have a very small comment. Usually when the communities were established, they were immediately included to the direct list in the budget, in the national budget. But this year it did not happen because of some reasons. The budgetary committee had decided that we have to allocate 1.5 billion hryvnia to refinance the local communities which suffered because of pandemic. Vitaliy, Viacheslav, thank you for your presentation, understanding how complex the reform is. I have two questions to you. In the areas which could be corrected by the moment when decision is finally taken. As far as I understood, in many oblasts, you decided to enlarge the number of districts because in some oblasts, very big districts might be very stressful, but in one oblast, in Ternopil Oblast, for example, you applied quite different approach, and unlike the joint position of 4 districts now, you suggest to have 3 districts instead and create one big district where definitely we will have many managerial problems. In each oblast, problem issues are related to the borders of districts. People have stereotypes. They got accustomed to go for shopping and to visit theater performance in a big city, and they believe that they would lose if the district center is moved to relocated to some rural area. Now about the trend, about your first question. If you base on the position of Mr. Ganushak that we should have just 100 districts and that's it. But in Ternopil Oblast, we applied the same approach as we did everywhere. Now, we have in some oblasts the bigger districts which we would like to have. Perhaps some changes will be introduced. As for the objective gravitation of local rural population to bigger cities, I think in some cases this is subconscious decisions. Zolochev district might be a good case, but there was natural gravity to Lviv district. Maybe in further practice they will have some problems because this gravitation to bigger cities will deprive from efficient operation. Prefect should get into the community, and this should be the main idea of division. Okay, we will see. Maybe in some regions and in some oblasts we will change something for the better. About Ternopil Oblast, the option about 4 districts or about 3 districts is in full compliance with our ideas. Now I would like to thank you to Mr. Kaleushka. I'm now addressing to Chernobyl administration. The state administration, these are members of parliament from Ternopil Oblast. Could you gather together at least once a month and suggest better solution for the government? Today's option for solution splits people, those who makes happy with the supporters of 3 districts and makes very unhappy supporters of 4 districts. But all those who represent the official power in Chernobyl, in Ternopil, they remain splitted. My call is today to you, please get together and produce some unified approach to make happy local authority. Very short remark. We are opened for everybody, but nevertheless, it's difficult to discuss each oblast. It's much easier for local residents and local population to discuss all these issues with the local members of parliament. Please keep in mind that they will vote for this document in the plenary room. Tetiana from Chernivtsi Oblast. The answer is very simple. Khatyn is a district center. That is what I wanted to ask about district centers. What were criteria when you determined the centers, whether it's number of residents or infrastructure or geographical position? Could you explain the situation in Chernivtsi Oblast, where Min region suggests 1 number of districts, while local oblast administration offers quite different scheme. And what prevails, the oblast administration suggestion or the ministry project? Many times I mentioned to the Chernivtsi residents, when it comes to district division, the local authorities have only consultancy, advisory voice. The ministry idea about 3 districts is optimal. As for criteria, we have many criteria about accessibility, about security, number of residents, etc. Your local administration provided its vision, but this was taken into account in Kiev, but the ministry had its own considerations. This answer coincides with the position of our ministry. As for Chernivtsi Oblast, we have Khatyn district, the option with Khatyn district. If you have arguments, then submit your arguments. About Starzhenetsky district, we had doubts, and we have doubts and we listened more carefully to the ideas of the oblast administration. First, they suggested to have one district in the entire oblast. So my advice to you is try to keep control over the ideas of your local oblast administration. Sometimes they express crazy ideas. Marina Protsenko from a newspaper Slobitsky Krai, Kharkiv Oblast. When Marina is preparing to ask you her question, I will announce another question from Chernihiv Oblast. Chernihiv Oblast. In the north of Chernihiv region, Novgorod-Siversky instead of Karyukivka as district center. Perhaps, perhaps I can answer the question. We have consolidated position. We have many criteria. In northeastern part of Chernihiv Oblast, we have Karyukiv, Kamena, and Novgorod-Siversky as pretenders to become district centers. And we kept in mind only security considerations. Of course, Novgorod-Siversky is not the best in terms of availability considerations, but around Koryukiv, but we understood that that in terms of Ukrainian authority and Ukrainian power should be close to the border, and this decision was made absolutely consciously. Marina Protsenko from Kharkiv Oblast.
Do you hear us? Yeah. We are waiting for a question. Good afternoon. I would like to ask about Kharkiv Oblast administration concerning proposals from the group that proposed 7 regions and the ministry. Instead of Lebedynsky, there was Bogodubitsky region. When was it changed and why? Changes happened at the stage of letter from Oblast administration to change the center. Governmental project corresponds with the submission from Kharkiv Oblast administration. In Kharkiv Oblast, maybe you won't have questions on this. Honestly saying, the ministry is not fully satisfied with the results of its work. We were not able to find better format, taking into account that the oblast is big, Kharkiv city dominates, and we've agreed for 7 regions. 2 regions are discussive concerning parameters. We understand this, but we believe that in the process of work, we once again be able to specify something. But now we have such a decision. This is a consolidated decision by Oblast administration, the ministry, and we coordinated it with MPs of Ukraine that would take final decision on this. And as it was asked at the beginning, we don't have time for decision making, and I will say that we value each vote. I believe that there are no ideal reforms, but if we carry out this reform, we will be able to improve it in the future. We should not delay. We should not wait for 5 years again. Now we have favorable situation in order to complete what we started, as Roman Besmertny started speaking about it in 2005, and now we have a unique opportunity. This government, this parliament, they may approve such decisions, such laws, and the president will be able to sign them. Suspilne from Sumska Oblast, about the number of the districts in the oblast. Sumska Oblast, the draft was made public, 5 districts, and I believe that this raises discussions whether 5 districts are possible there. Yes, it is possible to have them there, or 3 districts. In the context of Sumski region, about centers, we should have a constructive discussion on this. If we envisage that Akhtyrsky region remains, we should discuss why Akhtarka, not Trestenets, should be a center. Akhtarka is bigger, but concerning prospects and development, I have a lot of doubts concerning this. Victoria Dunder, press center of the city administration. This is not about the districts, but about elections to councils in enlarged districts, those that are under control of Ukrainian government, taking into account that some regions are at the line of contact and elections were not held in these settlements in 2015. Maybe we will provide answer to her later on. Concerning this issue, we will be able to speak more precisely after we understand what electoral code we will have. Separately, decision will be prepared, and I've mentioned it at the beginning, about elections. So we'll be able to understand the situation concerning local elections. We will take a decision taking into account occupied territories and other peculiarities of the zone where military and civil administration works. In each community, we'll take decisions concerning each community, and it will be a complex, comprehensive solution. And this will be also about district councils. We didn't have such case in history, and we hope that this will be the last one in our history. And in the future, there will be a single solution concerning all districts in Ukraine, including Crimea. And we have comments on our Facebook pages. About the subordination of oblast important cities, whether they will be subordinated to oblast administrations. Dear colleagues, we have Soviet laws that still are present. People and communities, they should be equal in their rights, opportunities, and all communities, and we believe in this, they are equal concerning their powers and status, except Kiev as capital of Ukraine. It has special status, and Sevastopol city. All others are territorial communities. And this regional importance city or city of oblast importance or regional importance, we should forget about it starting 1st of January next year. And the status, it doesn't provide anything. We will just have the name of the community or city or town or village community, they will be subordinated to their communities in accordance with law, and decisions should be lawful. If someone will tries to break it, then the state should help to correct this. We should gradually get accustomed to new reality that will start in January next year. One more question, whether there will be press conference concerning reorganization of regional administrations and what powers will be, and this is of interest to workers of these administrations. And this was one of the topics. We've discussed this topic with my colleague. It's unbelievable that we had such conversation, and we do not have a car, so we just walked here. So this is the functioning of local executive bodies, district and oblast administrations for this year and starting 2021, and the whole system, territorial system of power. I'm sure, but final decisions will be taken after the relevant law is adopted. And I believe that this year, this formation of a local executive body formation and these regional councils formation, there should be more efficient work. We cannot reorganize the system of executive power without formation of system of local governance, and only starting next budget year, after completion of all the processes connected with transfer of property, redistribution in the system of councils and provision to gramadas to communities, and separate decisions will be taken by the government in accordance with law concerning creation of district administrations in the new districts and liquidation of regional administrations that exist now in the districts. And I believe that we should consider the issue that for some transitional period, until efficient functioning of the system of local governance, until the network of service provision centers is established, these administrations will continue their work. And together with Vitaliy, if this request is provided, we will think when we are able to hold such a press conference, but this will be done after all decisions will be taken concerning regions and communities, and the elections will be announced, and there will be a package of laws. This is not the final stage, this is just the beginning. So we should do really a lot. This year we should do more than in 10 years maybe, and there will be, do we understand correctly that clear powers and proposals concerning regional administrations and councils, we will be able to see all this when new laws will be introduced, whether we are correct. We'll have presentation materials before these decisions are made by the parliament. The ministry is working on these acts. We have drafts, but they are not made public because consultations are held. Юлія Барначна, Укрінформ Agency, Харків область. Юлія. Do you hear us? We do not hear you. Yulia, we do not hear you. Виктор Ганган, Знамя труда newspaper, Odessa Oblast. If one of the main targets is to decrease the number of districts and optimization of power, and state supervision is one of the functions, why the reduction and enlargement of the regions? Because control in the framework of the districts over councils will always be efficient more than if the number is increased. So maybe if this question is asked before our press conference, I understand this. If it is done after, we've provided answer already about this enlargement. I won't say that this is enlargement. This is the increase of efficiency at the regional level. So this is our main task. And we do not have the aim to enlarge the districts, to create administrations, to oversight self-governance. This is a myth. And people cannot get rid of it. There is no supervision in the framework of current concept. At this stage about supervision. It is in the European Charter, this administrative supervision. We may use this term after it is introduced into constitution. In constitution, we do not have such a term, but there is more rigid term. It is control. And regional and oblast administrations may do this throughout their powers, and this is more dangerous than what is proposed concerning supervision. Because control and the powers of administrations, they envisage check of any self-governance body. If it is done professionally, they may find some faults there. That's why, dear representatives of self-governance bodies, once again, I would like to repeat, I worked in the system of local governance. There is no problem in this. No one plans to take this under control. We believe that local governance should be only controlled by law, no political influence. So regional state administration or formation of the regions, it is not done to control anyone. These districts are made in order that state oblast administrations and all the system should be more widespread and efficient than state oblast administrations. And in each body of central power, 1, 2, or 3 units are present that work in this level. From Ivano-Frankivщина, Kolomyia region sells property and does not divide into community. What should communities do? Because this is common property of all the districts and all communities. First, in this case, district state administration that in accordance with constitution provides lawfulness and protection of rights of citizens. And the protection of rights of citizens, this is also connected with the rights of territorial communities. They should respond if there are violations of legislation. Second, people hold sessions on one day to condemn something. Hold a session, make a request to law enforcement bodies. This is your common property. This is your common assets. So before selling it, and this information goes from many regions, I don't believe that we will be able to adopt this law, and maybe there will be an amendment that before creation of local governance bodies, we should put a moratorium, some limitations. Some limitations should be imposed because many regional councils, district councils, they take such decisions and they sell property. And territorial communities, they should monitor this, and top list administrations should monitor the situation. Yuria Barachna, about the regions of Kharkivshina, what is the problem with these regions, with these districts, and what is the problem there concerning the reform? There are many questions about Kharkiv Oblast. This is a powerful oblast. Economic potential and scientific potential is great there, and other parameters are high. A lot of attention is paid to this oblast, and you may create different districts there. We had discussions for many years, and they will continue, maybe for a year after decision will be taken by the parliament. So we discuss to our benefit if it helps us. 2 regions, 2 districts in accordance with parameters. They are less than 150,000. We do not like this, and they are situated not far from Kharkiv, and their configuration, you may look at them. I don't want to name them, but I believe that if there is an opportunity to correct, but I believe that this decision that was taken will be introduced to the parliament. And also about regional archives. Sylski Visnik, in case of enlargement, what will happen with archives? Whether they will be united in one, or whether they will go to communities? We have a draft law that will be submitted to the government. What will happen to archives and local budgets, to property? Archives, there is legislation concerning archives, and everything is envisaged concerning storage of documents. I believe that we have central archive that provides a methodological guidance, and oblast archives, and I believe that we believe that all material should be properly stored. District archives, in my personal opinion, this is not correct. There should be municipal archives, and then it should be provided and guaranteed by the state. At the level of district, it should be protected seriously by the state. Until the digitalization is over, no document should be lost, because sometimes it happens so when archives vanish, when they are burned, some human fates suffer. And one of the last questions, Valeria Zhovtun, Grechka site, Kirovogradska Oblast, about new Kirovogradshina districts. Why 4 districts, and do you have problematic issues? No problematic issues in Kirovogradshina. About 4 districts. I do not see alternatives there. Yeah, I know one person who is against Kirovograd, 4 regions in Kirovograd Oblast, the most radical expert. If there is 3 districts, and then it would be 190 kilometers from one part to the center, and it's too much. And Golovanevsky region was added. This was balanced solution that is supported by all stakeholders. Vasily Gonta, Голос Башкортостана. I will read one question. what about the ideological leader of your reform, the person? So we have fathers of our reform, yes. When I read somewhere that some expert said something or wrote something, I always want to ask, where do they get these expert certificates? We have formal leaders and informal leaders. I believe that this reform does not have a name of one person. It is impossible. This is a result of huge work. I would say of hundreds of people who worked on this reform and continue to work on it in all the system of power, in local governance system, all those communities that were created, they supported this reform. They also were the ideologists of resolving some issues, and state administrations, oblast councils, people's deputies, and experts and people from the government and centers of development of self-governance and regional centers and many other entities and people. And last year and this year, after parliamentary elections, we closely cooperated with the committee, with Andrei Klitschko, Vitaliy, Bezgin. Maybe someone will tell that he is my relative because we often speak with him. We have discussions that are difficult, but I believe that together we are searching for solutions, and no one dominates among experts, among others. Some people say I, but we say we. We do this reform parliament, government supported by the president of Ukraine and expert community, and the projects of international technical help, and you represent here Dobre project, and there are others. I won't mention everyone who help us in this process. I will be brief.
There is no much to add, but believe me, this is truly the joint work. Any reform, not to mention this very complicated reform, will bring not so much glory, but a lot of negative to all those who try to implement it. Before quarantine, my colleagues and me, we visited Kherson Oblast, where local chairman is really very proactive and is very capable in reaching and delivering what people need. Dear speakers, let us finish. Perhaps if you want to say additionally something now, you have this chance to say some final remarks. I spoke a lot during the last 2 hours. I mean, decentralization has to bring people together, and we have to work for people. We have to unite, and I encourage members of local communities to unite. The parliament, the government, activists, experts, they should unite their efforts. With this unity, with lesser speculations and negative, we will make this reform successfully. Today and earlier, we discussed a lot, and we continuously repeat what we want to do during the next 3 weeks, and during the future 3 weeks we have to do a lot, and we do not have the right to failure. We do not have the right to fail with these 3 weeks. We are approaching the finish line, and I would appeal to our experts, to politicians, to our local people, and encourage you to make your contribution. Many people tend to criticize, and usually I say in response, I also have a lot of things which I would like to criticize, but we have to cover this path. We have to reach the result, and this result should be positive. We have to approach to the top. We have to approach to the final height, and you may recollect the question about Bergiv district. Here, I would like to advise you to go deeply into the issues, and please have more trust to those people who are involved into the reform. We are thinking not about reform itself. We want to make our country strong, safe, and make it attractive for citizens of Ukraine and for our neighbors. We want to improve the life, and then we will win. Thank you to our speakers for stamina. Thank you to all our to all the participants. And